How hard is it to learn game development as a hobby? That's exactly what I did. I've learned how to code as a hobby, and I want to share my experience with all of you here on YouTube. First thing that I want to say is that there's no shortcuts. Learning to code has a pretty steep learning curve. Each language is going to have its own nuance to it. I chose to learn Swift, Apple's native language that they use for their IDE Xcode. But I've also learned C# and Unity. I dabbled with that as well. They're similar. All of these languages have their similarities and they all have their differences. It comes down to personal preference, which one you want to choose. I would recommend sticking with some of the more popular ones rather than going to some obscure language that doesn't have a whole lot of support, or more importantly, doesn't have a lot of tutorials out there, because you're going to want to leverage the internet when you're learning, especially if you're trying to be self-taught. You're going to want to be able to find answers to the common questions, and Swift is maybe not the best language for game development. It has its place, but it's not super popular. And the main reason it's not popular is because you can only release your game to the Apple ecosystem. So you're cutting off PC, you're cutting off Android, you're cutting off Switch or Xbox. Basically, you are committing to being 100% iOS. And if you're fine with that, then Xcode, Swift, and SpriteKit are a legitimate option. Are they the best option? That's really up to you and your personal preference. After you have that, it's really important that you take time to just play around. You can do tutorials. Udemy helped me quite a bit, as well as YouTube. But following a tutorial is one thing. You have to have the ability to take the code that you're learning and then apply it in a new way, do something yourself, put your own twist on it, and really play around so that you can understand how it works. Because if you're just following along in a tutorial, it's very easy to kind of almost forget how things work or not really make those connections. I find that when I am taking my code and really thinking through the process and trying to figure out what the output needs to be and then trying to hack through it myself, that's when I learn the most. That's how I develop the skill to become a better developer. As someone learning to code as a hobby, you don't have to learn all of the information. You probably have a day job. You probably have a family life outside of that day job. So you really have to balance that. And I think the biggest thing there is just making sure whatever you're learning, you're doing in small chunks. You're not taking on huge projects. You're not trying to understand the entire breadth of whatever language you're learning. Don't bother with all of that. Learn brick by brick, build a solid foundation, start with small, manageable, bite-sized projects. It's fine if they're simple games. Zeroed, which is the first game I published, is a very simple game. And I had a lot of other little tiny projects before that I didn't think were fit for publishing. Start small, build on your experience, build up to something bigger and bigger. And the more you do this, the more you'll be able to pull from that past experience to build faster in the future and better. If you have any thoughts for what you want to see for content on this channel, let me know in the comments below. I'm going to be doing weekly videos, so if you aren't subscribed, which you probably aren't because this channel just went live, get subscribed now so you don't miss out on the next week's video. And I will see you next week. Bye for now.